Welcome to Daily English Room. Today's topic is art. Do you enjoy looking at art?
Actually, I do. As a software engineer, I spend most of my time looking at code, so visiting art galleries helps me relax. I particularly enjoy digital art because it combines my interest in technology with creativity.
Yes, I absolutely love it. In my classroom, I often use artwork to teach language to my students. It's wonderful to see how children can express their thoughts about art even with limited vocabulary. My own children also enjoy our weekend visits to the local art museum.
Yes, I consider cooking to be an art form itself, so I'm naturally drawn to all types of artistic expression. I find that looking at colorful artwork actually inspires my food plating designs.
Of course. As a graphic designer, looking at art is both part of my job and my passion. I especially love how art styles differ between Eastern and Western cultures.
Definitely. In my work as a tour guide, I often take visitors to local galleries and historical sites. Slovenian art tells wonderful stories about our culture and history.
Yes, I really do. I'm particularly interested in art that addresses environmental themes. It's amazing how artists can raise awareness about climate change through their work.
What type of art do you prefer?
I'm really into contemporary art, especially installations that incorporate technology. There's this fascinating intersection between art and tech that I find really appealing, like interactive digital exhibitions.
I have a special appreciation for traditional Moroccan art, like our intricate mosaics and textiles. But I also enjoy teaching my children about different art styles from around the world. It helps them understand diverse cultures.
I'm drawn to bold, colorful paintings. Maybe it's because I work with food presentation, but I love art that's as vibrant as the dishes I create. Abstract art really catches my eye.
I love minimalist Japanese art and modern graphic design. The simplicity and attention to detail in both styles really speaks to me. I often incorporate these elements into my own work.
I particularly enjoy landscape paintings that capture the natural beauty of mountains and forests. Being an adventure tour guide, I see nature's artistry every day in my work.
I'm very interested in contemporary African art, especially pieces that blend traditional techniques with modern themes. I also appreciate environmental art installations that make people think about sustainability.
Did you learn about art at school?
Not much, to be honest. In China, my school focused mainly on academic subjects. But I've been learning about art through online courses and museum visits since moving abroad.
Yes, I did. In Morocco, we had art classes where we learned about both local and international art history. Now, as a teacher, I try to incorporate those early learning experiences into my English lessons.
A little bit. In Brazil, we had some basic art education, but I've learned much more about art through my culinary training, especially about composition and visual presentation.
Yes, art education was an important part of our curriculum in Japan. We practiced traditional calligraphy and studied both Japanese and Western art history. It really influenced my career choice.
Yes, and it was quite comprehensive. In Slovenia, we had regular art classes where we learned about European art history and tried different techniques. It helps me now when I'm explaining local art to tourists.
Yes, we had art classes, but they were quite basic. I've learned much more about art through my environmental studies, particularly how artists represent nature and climate issues.
Have you ever created any art yourself?
I've recently started experimenting with digital art using some programming tools. It's not traditional art, but I enjoy creating generative art with code.
Yes, I create art with my children all the time. We do painting, collages, and crafts. It's a wonderful way to develop their creativity while practicing English vocabulary.
Well, if you consider food presentation as art, then I create art every day. But I also enjoy sketching new plate designs and food concepts in my notebook.
Yes, creating art is my profession. Besides my graphic design work, I also do traditional Japanese watercolor painting as a hobby. It helps me stay connected to my cultural roots.
I like to sketch the landscapes I see during my tours. They're not masterpieces, but they help me remember beautiful places and share them with future tourists.
I create digital collages about environmental issues for my university projects. I combine photographs and graphics to tell stories about climate change and conservation.
Is there an art gallery or museum in your area?
Yes, there's a modern art museum near my workplace in the tech district. They often have exhibitions showcasing digital art and technology-based installations. I sometimes visit during my lunch break to clear my mind.
We have several wonderful museums in my city. My favorite is a small gallery that features local Moroccan artists. I often take my students there for field trips because they have interactive workshops for children.
Yes, my city has many amazing art museums. There's one that combines art with gastronomy, hosting exhibitions about food culture and culinary arts. It's become my favorite place to find inspiration.
Tokyo has countless museums and galleries. I frequently visit the design museum close to my studio. They showcase both traditional Japanese art and contemporary design, which is perfect for my interests.
Where I live has several excellent galleries. I particularly like our Museum of Modern Art because they often feature works that reflect Slovenia's natural landscapes, which connects well with my tour guiding.
Yes, we have a growing art scene in my city. There's a new contemporary art center that often features exhibitions about environmental issues. I recently attended a powerful exhibition about ocean pollution.
How do you feel about public art, like murals or sculptures in the street?
I think they make cities more vibrant and interesting. In my neighborhood, there's a fascinating digital billboard installation that changes based on weather data. It's a perfect blend of art and technology.
I absolutely love public art. It makes art accessible to everyone, especially children. I often use street murals as conversation starters in my English lessons, asking students to describe what they see.
Public art adds flavor to a city, just like spices in cooking. I love how the street art in Brazil tells stories about our culture and traditions. It makes everyday life more colorful and meaningful.
As a designer, I believe public art is essential for urban spaces. In Japan, we have a wonderful balance of traditional and modern public art. I'm currently working on a project to design some public signage that incorporates artistic elements.
It's fantastic. Public art is actually a highlight of many of my tours. In Slovenia, we have some incredible mountain sculptures that blend perfectly with the natural environment. Tourists always want to take photos with them.
I'm a huge supporter of public art, especially when it carries environmental messages. There's a beautiful mural near my university that depicts local wildlife, and it really helps raise awareness about conservation.
Do you think art is important in everyday life?
Absolutely. Even in software development, we talk about the art of coding and beautiful code. Art teaches us to think creatively and solve problems differently, which is crucial in my field.
Yes, art is essential. It helps us express emotions and ideas that sometimes we can't put into words. This is especially true when teaching young children or learning a new language. Art becomes a universal way to communicate.
Without a doubt, as a chef, I see art in everything, from the way we plate food to how we arrange our kitchen. Art brings beauty to everyday moments and makes life more enjoyable.
Definitely. Design and art influence everything around us, from the cups we drink from to the signs we read. Good design makes our daily lives both easier and more beautiful.
Of course, art helps us appreciate beauty in our surroundings. When I guide tours, I often point out how art appears in nature, in the patterns of leaves, the shapes of mountains, or the colors of sunset.
Yes, absolutely. Art helps us understand complex issues like climate change in ways that statistics alone cannot. It makes us more aware of our surroundings and our impact on the world.
Do you think art classes should be mandatory in schools?
I believe they should be. Looking back, I wish I had more art education in school. It could have helped me develop creativity earlier, which is actually very important in programming and problem solving.
Yes, absolutely. As a teacher, I see how art classes help children develop not just creativity, but also critical thinking and self-expression. It's particularly helpful for language learning, as it gives students another way to communicate.
Definitely, art education teaches you to see the world differently. In my culinary career, the artistic skills of color combination and presentation are just as important as cooking techniques.
Of course. In Japan, art education helped me develop patience and attention to detail. These skills are valuable in any career, not just creative ones. Plus, it's a great way to understand cultural heritage.
Yes, I think it's essential. Art education helped me develop an eye for beauty in nature, which is now crucial in my work as a tour guide. It teaches you to appreciate the world around you.
Absolutely. Art education can help students understand complex issues like environmental change in a more accessible way. It also encourages creative problem solving, which we desperately need for global challenges.
Has social media changed the way you experience art?
Yes, significantly. I follow several digital artists on social media, and it's amazing how technology platforms have made art more accessible. I often discover new art styles through my social media feeds.
It has. I use social media to find art project ideas for my students. It's also wonderful how my children can see art from around the world on their tablets. Though I make sure to balance screen time with actual museum visits.
Definitely, Instagram has become a huge platform for food presentation art. I share my own culinary creations there, and I get inspired by other chefs' artistic plating from around the world.
As a graphic designer, social media has completely transformed how I share and discover art. Pinterest and Instagram are like virtual museums, though I think they sometimes make us focus too much on trends rather than originality.
Yes, it's changed how I promote tourism too. I share photos of local art and beautiful landscapes on social media, and it helps attract people to Slovenia. It's like creating a digital art gallery of our country.
Absolutely. Social media has made environmental art more visible and impactful. I can easily share and find artwork about climate change, which helps raise awareness globally.
What's your opinion on digital art versus traditional art?
As someone who works in tech, I'm naturally drawn to digital art. I think it's just as valid as traditional methods. The possibility to combine programming with creativity opens up entirely new artistic dimensions.
Both have their place in education. Traditional art helps children develop fine motor skills and patience, while digital tools make art more accessible and less messy. I use both in my classroom depending on the lesson.
In cooking, we blend traditional and modern techniques, and I think the same applies to art. Both forms can be beautiful, though personally, I prefer creating with my hands, whether it's cooking or sketching.
I work with both forms daily. Digital tools offer incredible precision and efficiency, but traditional techniques have a special warmth and character. I think the best approach is combining both methods.
I appreciate both, but I have a soft spot for traditional art. There's something special about seeing brush strokes on a canvas or chisel marks on a sculpture, especially when showing historical artworks to tourists.
I think both are powerful tools for environmental advocacy. Digital art helps reach wider audiences online, while traditional art can create more tangible connections with nature. We need both in today's world.
What role do you think art plays in preserving culture?
Art helps me stay connected to Chinese culture. Even in the tech world, we often incorporate traditional artistic elements into modern digital designs.
Art is crucial for cultural preservation. In Morocco, our traditional patterns and designs tell stories of our heritage. I love teaching my children and students about different cultures through their art.
It's essential. Brazilian art, like our cuisine, reflects our diverse cultural heritage. Through art, we preserve traditional techniques and stories while creating new interpretations for future generations.
In Japan, art is fundamental to our cultural identity. From traditional woodblock prints to modern manga, art helps us maintain our cultural uniqueness while embracing contemporary influences.
Art is like a time capsule of culture. When I guide tourists through Slovenia, our traditional art helps tell the story of our people, our history, and our relationship with nature.
Art preserves not just culture but also our connection to the environment. In Nigeria, traditional art often reflects our relationship with nature, which is so important to remember in today's world.
Have you ever been to an art festival?
Yes, I recently attended a digital art festival where they showcased AI-generated artwork. It was fascinating to see how other technologists are pushing the boundaries of artistic expression through programming.
I take my children to our annual Moroccan Arts Festival. It's a wonderful celebration with traditional crafts, music, and visual arts. I've also organized mini art festivals at my school to encourage cultural exchange.
Yes, in Brazil we have amazing art festivals that combine visual arts with food and music. Last year, I even participated in one, creating food installations alongside other artists. It was an incredible experience.
In Japan, we have many traditional art festivals throughout the year. My favorite is a modern design festival in Tokyo where artists and designers collaborate on installations. It's very inspiring for my work.
Yes, we have a wonderful summer arts festival in Ljubljana's Old Town. As a tour guide, it's one of my busiest times. Tourists love seeing local artists working in the historic streets and squares.
I recently helped organize an environmental art festival at my university. We showcased artworks made from recycled materials to raise awareness about waste management. It was really impactful.
What kind of art would you like to have in your home?
I'd love to have some interactive digital art installations, perhaps a wall display that changes based on the time of day or weather. I also appreciate minimalist tech-inspired prints.
I already have quite a collection of my children's artwork, which I treasure. I've also decorated with traditional Moroccan tapestries and some educational art prints that help with language learning.
I love having colorful food photography and local Brazilian artwork in my home. I've also framed some of my own food sketches. The kitchen, especially, should be a place that inspires creativity.
I prefer a mix of traditional Japanese prints and contemporary graphic design pieces. My apartment has a gallery wall combining both styles, and I often rotate the artwork to keep the space fresh.
I have several landscape paintings of Slovenia's most beautiful locations. They're like souvenirs from my tours, and each one tells a story. I'd love to add more pieces by local artists.
I'd love to have more eco-friendly art pieces made from sustainable materials. Currently, I have some photographs of African wildlife and a few pieces of recycled art from local artists.
Do you think anyone can become an artist?
Yes, I believe so. Even in programming, we talk about coding as an art form. It's about finding your medium, whether that's paint, digital tools, or even computer code.
Absolutely. I see this every day with my students. Everyone has creative potential. It's just about finding the right way to express it. Art isn't just about technical skill, it's about sharing your perspective.
Of course. In cooking, we say everyone can learn to cook, and I think it's the same with art. It's about practice, passion, and finding your own style. Some people express art through food, others through painting.
I believe everyone has artistic potential, but it takes dedication to develop it. As a designer, I've seen how practice and perseverance are just as important as natural talent.
Definitely, nature itself is an artist, and we all have the ability to create. Some of my tourists say they can't draw, but then they take beautiful photos of our landscapes.
Yes, I think art is about expressing what you care about. You don't need to be technically perfect. Look at environmental art. It's often more about the message than the technique.
How has technology changed the way we experience art?
This is something I think about a lot. Virtual reality galleries, AI-generated art, and interactive installations have completely transformed how we create and experience art. It's exciting to be part of this transformation through my work in tech.
Technology has made art more accessible to my students. We can virtually visit museums around the world, and digital tools make it easier for children to experiment with different art styles. Though I still believe in the importance of hands-on creation.
Social media has revolutionized food presentation art. Now, chefs can share their creative plating instantly with the world. Technology has also given us new tools for food art, like 3D printed sugar sculptures.
As a graphic designer, I've seen massive changes. Digital tools have made design more efficient, but they've also created new art forms entirely. However, I think it's important to understand traditional techniques too.
Technology has changed how tourists experience art in our historical sites. We now use augmented reality to show how ancient art looked originally. It's amazing to see visitors connect with history this way.
Digital platforms have made it easier to share environmental art globally, which helps spread awareness about climate issues. We can now create powerful visual messages using data visualization and digital tools.
How much time do you spend on art-related activities each week?
I usually spend about 2 to 3 hours each weekend experimenting with digital art and coding. Sometimes I stay late at the office to work on my generative art projects when I need a break from regular programming.
Between preparing art activities for my classes and doing crafts with my children, I probably spend around 5 to 6 hours a week. We usually have a big art session on weekends when the children can really take their time.
Well, if you count food presentation as art, then several hours each day. But for traditional art like sketching and visiting galleries, I probably spend about 4 hours a week. Sunday is usually my day for artistic inspiration.
Since it's part of my job, I spend most of my working hours on design. But for personal art projects, I dedicate at least 3 hours every weekend to practicing traditional Japanese painting.
During tourist season, I spend several hours each day discussing art and culture with visitors. For my own sketching and photography, I usually find time early in the mornings, maybe 4 to 5 hours per week.
I spend around 6 hours weekly working on environmental art projects for my university assignments. I also try to visit our local gallery at least once a month to stay connected with the art community.
Do you think art should be expensive?
Not at all. Digital art platforms are actually making art more accessible. While I understand why some traditional artworks are expensive, I believe everyone should be able to enjoy and own art in some form.
I don't think price should be a barrier to experiencing art. That's why I love teaching children that they can create beautiful things with simple materials. Art should be accessible to everyone, regardless of their budget.
I believe art should be valued fairly, but not necessarily expensive. Like good food, there's room for both high-end and affordable art. What matters most is the creativity and passion behind it.
As a professional designer, I understand the value of artistic work. However, I think there should be art available at all price points. Digital platforms have made this more possible than ever.
Art comes in many forms, from expensive gallery pieces to street art that everyone can enjoy for free. In my tours, I show people that beauty can be found everywhere, not just in expensive museums.
I believe art should be accessible to everyone. Some of the most powerful environmental art I've seen was created from recycled materials that didn't cost anything. Value shouldn't just be about price.
What role does music play in your appreciation of visual art?
When I'm creating digital art, I always listen to electronic music. It helps me find the right rhythm for my coding patterns. I've even tried creating visual representations of music through programming.
In my classroom, I often play soft background music during art activities. It helps create a calm atmosphere and encourages creativity. Different types of music can inspire different styles of artwork.
In the kitchen, music and visual presentation go hand in hand. Different music styles influence how I plate dishes. Classical music, for example, often inspires more elegant, formal presentations.
Traditional Japanese art is often connected to musical concepts like rhythm and harmony. When I work on traditional paintings, I sometimes listen to traditional Japanese music to maintain that connection.
During my art-focused tours, I sometimes include traditional Slovenian music to enhance the experience. It helps visitors connect more deeply with the cultural aspects of our visual arts.
When I'm working on environmental art projects, I often listen to nature sounds or African traditional music. It helps me stay connected to the environmental themes I'm trying to express.
Have you ever tried to teach someone else about art?
Yes, I've given some informal workshops on creative coding and digital art to my colleagues. It's interesting to show other programmers how they can use their coding skills artistically. Teaching art is a big part of my job. I love showing children how to express themselves through different art forms. It's especially rewarding when they use art to practice their English vocabulary.
I often teach junior chefs about food presentation. I show them how color, balance, and composition can transform a simple dish into something extraordinary. It's like teaching edible art.
I mentor young design students sometimes, teaching them both digital tools and traditional Japanese design principles. It's rewarding to help them find their own creative voice.
Every day, as a tour guide, I'm constantly teaching visitors about our local art and culture. I especially enjoy explaining the symbolism in traditional Slovenian art to people from different cultures.
I've given presentations at my university about using art for environmental advocacy. I teach other students how to create impactful visual messages about climate change.
If you could create your dream art project, what would it be?
I'd love to create a large-scale interactive installation that combines virtual reality, programming, and traditional Chinese art elements. Something that lets people physically interact with digital art.
My dream would be to create a multicultural art center for children, where they could learn about different cultures through art while practicing language skills. A place where creativity and education come together.
I'd love to create a series of artistic viewpoints along our hiking trails, installations that frame the natural beauty of Slovenia in unique ways. It would combine art, nature, and tourism.
I dream of designing a public space that perfectly blends Japanese minimalism with modern functionality. Something that shows how traditional aesthetics can improve modern urban life.
I'd love to create a series of artistic viewpoints along our hiking trails, installations that frame the natural beauty of Slovenia in unique ways. It would combine art, nature, and tourism.
My dream project would be a traveling exhibition of environmental art made entirely from recycled materials, showing how different cultures around the world approach sustainability through creativity.
How much time do you spend on art-related activities each week?
I usually spend about 2 to 3 hours each weekend experimenting with digital art and coding. Sometimes I stay late at the office to work on my generative art projects when I need a break from regular programming.
Between preparing art activities for my classes and doing crafts with my children, I probably spend around 5 to 6 hours a week. We usually have a big art session on weekends when the children can really take their time.
Well, if you count food presentation as art, then several hours each day. But for traditional art like sketching and visiting galleries, I probably spend about 4 hours a week. Sunday is usually my day for artistic inspiration.
Since it's part of my job, I spend most of my working hours on design. But for personal art projects, I dedicate at least 3 hours every weekend to practicing traditional Japanese painting.
During tourist season, I spend several hours each day discussing art and culture with visitors. For my own sketching and photography, I usually find time early in the mornings, maybe 4 to 5 hours per week.
I spend around 6 hours weekly working on environmental art projects for my university assignments. I also try to visit our local gallery at least once a month to stay connected with the art community.
How has your taste in art changed over time?
When I first got interested in art, I only appreciated very technical, precise digital works. But over time, I've learned to enjoy more abstract and experimental pieces. Working in technology has actually made me appreciate traditional art forms more.
Before becoming a teacher, I mainly focused on traditional Moroccan art. Now, through teaching children, I've developed an appreciation for all kinds of artistic expression, even simple stick figures. They all tell important stories.
Initially, I was only interested in art related to food and cuisine. But as I've traveled and worked in different restaurants, I've grown to appreciate many different styles. Now I see artistic inspiration everywhere.
My design education started with very rigid, traditional Japanese principles. Over time, I've learned to blend these with contemporary styles. My taste has become more flexible while still respecting traditional elements.
When I first started as a tour guide, I focused mainly on historical art. Now I've developed a deep appreciation for contemporary environmental art, especially pieces that connect with nature and landscape.
I used to think art was just about beauty, but studying environmental science has changed my perspective. Now I'm drawn to art that carries powerful messages about social and environmental issues.
What role does photography play in your life?
I use photography to document interesting patterns and textures that I might want to incorporate into my digital art. My phone is full of photos of unusual architectural details and technology installations.
I take lots of photos of my students' artwork to share with parents and create teaching portfolios. Photography helps me document the progress of young learners and celebrate their creative achievements.
Photography is essential in my work. I photograph all my dish presentations, both for inspiration and to share on social media. Good food photography is an art form in itself.
As a designer, I constantly take photos for reference and inspiration. I especially love photographing examples of traditional Japanese design in modern settings. It helps inform my work.
Photography is a crucial part of my tour guiding. I help tourists capture the perfect shots of our landscapes and artwork. I also use photos to document new locations for future tours.
I use photography to document environmental changes and for my art projects. Sometimes a powerful photograph can say more about climate change than pages of scientific data.
How do seasons or weather affect your appreciation of art?
Rainy days actually inspire me to create more digital art. There's something about being indoors with my computer that sparks creativity. I also notice that my color choices change with the seasons.
The changing seasons influence what art projects I plan for my classes. We use a lot of bright colors in winter to lift spirits, and in spring we often do outdoor art activities inspired by nature.
Seasons hugely influence my food presentation. I use different colors and plating styles based on seasonal ingredients. Even my sketches reflect the changing seasons and available produce.
Seasonal changes are deeply important in Japanese art. I find myself drawn to different color palettes and motifs as the seasons change. It naturally influences my design work.
Each season offers different artistic opportunities in nature. Winter snow creates beautiful minimalist landscapes, while autumn gives us vibrant colors. I adjust my tours to highlight these seasonal art shows.
Different seasons show different environmental challenges, which affects my artwork. Dry seasons especially inspire me to create pieces about water conservation and climate change.
Do you have any art-related apps on your phone?
Yes, quite a few. I have several coding apps for creating digital art, and some AR apps that let you place virtual art in real spaces. I also follow several digital art communities through social media.
I have some educational art apps that I use with my children and students. They're great for teaching color theory and basic drawing skills. I also have apps for finding kid-friendly art activities.
I have several photography apps for editing food photos, and some apps that showcase plating techniques from around the world. They're great for inspiration when I'm developing new dish presentations.
I use many design apps professionally, but I also have some traditional Japanese art apps that demonstrate brush techniques. They're helpful when I'm away from my studio.
I use apps that provide information about local art galleries and cultural events. Also, some augmented reality apps that show historical sites as they looked in the past.
I have apps for editing environmental photography and creating digital collages. I also use apps that help visualize climate data in artistic ways.
How do you think art affects mental health?
Creating digital art helps me distress after long coding sessions. There's something meditative about working on creative projects, even when they involve technology.
I've seen how art can help children process emotions and reduce anxiety. When students are struggling to express themselves verbally, especially in a new language, art becomes their voice.
Working in restaurant kitchens can be very stressful, but focusing on the artistic aspect of food presentation helps me stay calm and centered. It's like a form of meditation.
Traditional Japanese art practices like calligraphy have taught me mindfulness. When I'm feeling overwhelmed with design deadlines, returning to these practices helps restore balance.
Being in nature and appreciating its artistic beauty is incredibly therapeutic. I often recommend my stressed tourists to simply sit and sketch the landscapes. It's amazing how it calms them.
Creating environmental art helps me cope with eco-anxiety. It's a way to channel concerns about climate change into something positive and actionable.
Do you have a favorite color to use in art?
I'm drawn to electric blue in my digital art. It reminds me of technology and cyberspace. Plus, it creates a nice contrast with darker backgrounds in my programming-based art projects.
I love using bright yellow in my classroom art projects. It's such a cheerful color, and it helps create a positive learning environment. My students say it reminds them of sunshine and happiness.
I often work with deep reds and rich greens in my food presentations. These colors tend to make dishes look more appetizing, and they remind me of the vibrant ingredients we use in Brazilian cuisine.
In my design work, I frequently use indigo. It's a color deeply rooted in traditional Japanese art. It can be both modern and traditional, depending on how you use it.
I'm particularly fond of earth tones, especially forest green. It connects with the natural landscapes I show on my tours, and it's calming to work with when I'm sketching outdoors.
I often use ocean blue in my environmental artwork. It represents both the beauty of our waters and their vulnerability to climate change. It's a color that tells an important story. Have you ever bought art from a street artist?
Yes, I once bought a fascinating piece from a street artist who was creating digital art live using a tablet. It was interesting to see traditional street art methods applied to digital media.
I love buying from street artists in Marrakesh. Their work often combines traditional Moroccan patterns with contemporary styles. I use some pieces to decorate my classroom.
There's an amazing street artist near my restaurant who creates paintings using coffee and food pigments. I bought several pieces. They perfectly fit the restaurant's theme.
Yes, I collect small pieces from street artists when I travel. It's interesting to see how different cultures interpret urban art. These pieces often inspire my design work.
I regularly support our local street artists. I've even incorporated some of their locations into my tour routes because tourists love seeing artists at work in public spaces.
I bought a beautiful piece made from recycled materials from a street artist. It showed local wildlife using bottle caps and old newspapers. Very creative and environmentally conscious.
How do you feel about graffiti?
I think graffiti can be fascinating, especially when it incorporates digital elements like QR codes or augmented reality. It's like a bridge between street art and technology.
When done respectfully, graffiti can be a powerful form of expression. I sometimes use examples of positive graffiti art to teach my students about community messages and public communication.
In Brazil, many of our graffiti artists are internationally famous. I appreciate how it can transform urban spaces and tell stories about local culture through color and style.
From a designer's perspective, I'm interested in how graffiti artists use typography in space. In Japan, there's an interesting tension between traditional art forms and modern street art.
In my city, we have designated areas for graffiti art. It's become part of our cultural landscape, and tourists often ask about the stories behind different pieces.
I've seen some powerful environmental messages conveyed through graffiti. When done legally, it can be a great way to raise awareness about issues affecting local communities.
What role does art play in advertising?
In tech, we rely heavily on artistic design to make our products appealing. Good advertising art can make complex technology more approachable and user-friendly.
I often use advertising images in my lessons to teach critical thinking. It's interesting to discuss with students how art is used to convey messages and influence people.
Food photography in advertising is an art form itself. I've learned a lot about presentation from studying how different restaurants advertise their dishes.
As a graphic designer, I often work on advertising projects. The challenge is creating something both artistically interesting and commercially effective. It's about finding the right balance.
Tourism advertising relies heavily on artistic photography and design. I've seen how powerful images can attract people to visit cultural sites and appreciate local art.
I'm interested in how art in advertising can promote environmental awareness. Some companies use really creative approaches to communicate sustainability messages.
What is the most important thing art has taught you about life?
Art has taught me that there's no single right way to solve a problem. Just like in programming, there are many ways to create something beautiful. It's helped me think more creatively in my technical work and appreciate different perspectives. Through digital art, I've learned that innovation often comes from combining tradition with new technologies.
Through teaching art, I've learned that everyone has a unique voice worth sharing. Art has shown me that language barriers don't have to limit expression. Sometimes a simple drawing can say more than 1,000 words. It's taught me to be more patient and understanding with my students and my own children.
Art has taught me that beauty can be found in everyday things. Whether it's plating a simple dish or appreciating a street mural, there's creativity everywhere if you look for it. In my culinary journey, art has shown me that traditions can be honored while still making room for innovation.
The biggest lesson art has taught me is the importance of balance. between old and new, simplicity and complexity, work and creativity. Traditional Japanese art shows us that even empty space has meaning. This understanding has influenced not just my design work, but how I approach life itself.
Through art and nature, I've learned that every place has its own story to tell. Art has taught me to slow down and really see the beauty around us. As a tour guide, I've learned that helping others appreciate beauty can change how they see the world, even long after their visit.
Art has taught me that everyone has the power to make a difference. Through environmental art, I've learned that creativity can inspire change and hope. It's shown me that complex global issues can be communicated in ways that touch people's hearts and motivate action. Sometimes a single image can start a movement.
That's all for today's daily English room conversation practice. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, like, leave a comment, and hit the subscribe button. See you next time.